German Foreign Minister Sigmar Gabriel has stood up to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. We'll talk about that today, plus German-Israeli relations and the current state of Israeli society. Our guest is the Israeli musician and civil rights activist Ofer Waldman. Welcome.
Thank you.
And welcome, viewers. My name is Thomas Spahn. Mr. Waldman, Prime Minister Netanyahu cancelled a meeting with Sigmar Gabriel because Gabriel met with an Israeli organization that's often critical of Israel's government. Was it right for Gabriel to have that meeting?
These are first and foremost human rights organizations, and sometimes they do criticize the government. And Mr. Gabriel made his decision at a time when Israel is observing two important anniversaries: 50 years of German-Israeli relations and 50 years since Israel occupied the Palestinian territories after the Six-Day War. Gabriel had to make a decision. Should he advocate the values of German-Israeli friendship, liberal democracy, civil rights, and human rights, or should he get caught up in internal Israeli politics and Netanyahu's power games? From my perspective as an Israeli citizen, he made the right decision.
You're the chairman of the board of the New Israel Fund, an umbrella organization of civil rights movements in Israel. What did you think of Gabriel's meeting with that rights group?
It was quite gratifying. We at the NIF are supporters of democracy. We are working to preserve Israeli democracy, especially these days when a lot of what I would almost call anti-democratic legislation has been approved. Our task is to protect Israel's democracy. So we're pleased when Germany's foreign minister says, "I understand that these organizations play an important role in preserving Israeli democracy." The voice of the political opposition must be heard. It's wrong to silence these organizations, so what Gabriel did is extremely positive and gratifying for us and for our work.
Do you think that Netanyahu would have tried to pressure the British, American or French foreign minister?
We must view Netanyahu's decision in context. Why does he attack Israel's civil rights and human rights organizations? Netanyahu leads the most nationalistic and also the most stable coalition in Israeli history. He could carry out his policies, but he doesn't. Except for East Jerusalem, the Palestinian West Bank has not been annexed, and he's promised President Trump that he will slow or stop construction of settlements. So Netanyahu's supporters, like the settlers, are frustrated, and that puts him in a weaker position. He has to find a target for that frustration, and we, the human rights organizations, are it. Besides, Netanyahu won't pay much of a political price for snubbing a German foreign minister. Belgium's prime minister recently met with these organizations, and Netanyahu met with him afterward. So I think Germany is a special case.
So it's the burden of history and Germany's special relationship with Israel. You live and work in Berlin, in the country that organized the mass murder of Jews. Why did you choose to live in Germany?
The burden of history is always present, and it should be. It's present in my personal life, just as it is in German-Israeli relations. German culture plays a major role in Israel, and it was a tradition in my home. That means classical music, I was trained as a classical musician, and German literature. And this despite the 12 years of Nazi rule. When I decided to come to Germany in 1999, it's not like I was going to a completely foreign country. I don't feel like a foreigner here. I had to learn the language, but otherwise I feel anything but foreign.
The Israeli-Argentinian conductor and pianist Daniel Barenboim played a role in your decision to come to Germany. Tell us about that.
I was at the first meeting of Daniel Barenboim's West Eastern Divan Orchestra in Weimar in 1999. Afterward, Barenboim asked me whether I'd like to study in Germany. But I still had a year to serve in the Israeli army, and he said, "Let me worry about that." So I went back to Israel and did 2 weeks of guard duty in the desert. When I came home, there were 2 letters of invitation from the Staatskapelle Berlin, and 4 months later I was here in Berlin. Then I began my studies at the College of Arts, which is now the University of Arts.
You must have been quite pleased. You ended up in an orchestra that includes both Israeli and Palestinian musicians. Daniel Barenboim wants this orchestra to promote understanding between nations. How did you get along with the Palestinian musicians?
It's an extraordinary feeling to sit on stage with Palestinians and also with musicians from several Arab countries and to celebrate these fabulous works of Western culture. And Daniel Barenboim's foundation has definitely changed the lives of many young musicians from the Middle East.
You also work here in Germany to support the cause of human rights in Israel. Why is that work so important to you?
In the summer of 2014, shortly before the most recent Israeli campaign against Gaza, Mohammed Abu Hadil, a Palestinian boy from northern Jerusalem, was burned alive by Jewish nationalists. In response, Israeli peace activists wanted to visit his family to express their condolences. But the family turned down the offer. Then a group that belongs to our organization, the NIF, asked the family again, through Palestinian friends, if they could visit them. The family agreed. Now, picture this, 6 buses with 300 Israeli peace activists driving through East Jerusalem. On the right, Palestinian youths with their slingshots and stones. On the left, armed Israeli border police. And right down the middle comes this convoy with NIF peace activists who want to express their condolences to the victim's family. And I thought that we sent a tremendously powerful message.
And yet, Prime Minister Netanyahu refers to some of your organizations as traitors.
Well, how should one react to that? It leaves you speechless. Traitors. Recently, Deputy Foreign Minister Tzipi Hotovely compared us to Hamas. As I've said, Netanyahu has a political problem right now, and he's taking it out on us. Why are we traitors? We simply want to preserve the values of Israeli democracy. We address all segments of Israeli society. We don't work solely for peace between Israel and the Palestinians. We're fighting for equality for everyone in Israel. We're fighting for religious pluralism in Israel and in Jerusalem, and that's extremely important.
You talked about the convoy of peace activists. Your group tries to promote understanding. And you just mentioned Hamas, which now says it is open to a 2-state solution. What's your assessment of that development?
Some say that Hamas is just playing to a domestic audience. The same thing happens in Israeli politics, but it's still a welcome development. At the same time, you have to back words with deeds. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. But it's definitely important to come up with new ways of thinking about these issues. And for me, as a Jewish Israeli, it's important to find partners on the other side, whether you're in Berlin or in Israel. There are extremists on both sides. That includes Hamas and some Jewish Israelis. So I have to look for people who share my values, regardless of which side they're on.
President Trump says now that both sides accept a two-state solution, it should be relatively easy to make peace. Would you agree with his assessment?
I wish him all the best. Maybe he, of all people.
Is he naive?
I wouldn't say that. He has a lot of good advisors on the Middle East. The situation seems very complicated, almost impossible to resolve. But the solution is on the table, and it has been for years. It's actually very clear what the solution would look like. Some kind of two-state solution, some division of the country, perhaps some sort of confederation. But the solution itself is not terribly complicated.
There's growing concern about anti-Semitism in Germany. Have you or your wife experienced it personally?
No, because when people look at us, it is not immediately obvious that we're Israelis. We don't wear any religious symbols, no kippas or other head coverings, so we have not experienced anti-Semitism ourselves. Of course, some others have. There's anti-Semitism all over the world, unfortunately. But I would not say that it threatens us, in particular, in our daily lives.
Now, at the end of our interview, we'd like you to complete 3 sentences for us. For me, returning to Israel is
always possible.
In relations between Germans and Israelis, I hope that
when people say the word friendship, I want them to mean it. And when they talk about common values, they should stand by them.
For my 3 young children who live here in Germany, I wish
a peaceful future.
Ofer Waldman, thank you.
Thank you.